Welcome back to another episode of the Man That Can Project podcast. My name is Lockie Stewart and I'm the founder and host, and I'm a men's performance coach. Today, I am very, very excited to have a great friend and mentor, Emile Steenveld, on joining us from Bali. You're still in Bali, yeah?
Yeah, mate.
Got a beautiful backdrop behind you. But I was just saying to Emile before, Emile's someone I've wanted to have or invite on the show for a very long time, but for whatever reason, I've been scared to, because you're one of my very first mentors and you had a huge impact on, I guess, the trajectory that I've managed to go on over the last couple of years. And, watching how proactive and productive you are, I was like, no, you won't have time for me, but obviously you always do. And here we are now. But mate, you're doing some incredible things, and you've done so many incredible things over the years. I've worked with you in workshops one-on-one, and I've even had, when I was doing network marketing, I had my team go and do some work with you because I just got so much value from what you were teaching. And that was 5 years ago, and I've only just seen you continue to grow in leaps and bounds. And obviously, you've been a model. You've done that in Australia. You've done that over all in LA. But that's really guided you towards being an emotional intelligence coach, exclusively focusing on the inner workings of relationship with self and mind. And we're going to go into that soon, but with high achievers and performers all around the world. So, mate, let's get into it. Like, I'm once again grateful to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, brother. It's always a pleasure connecting back with you and also seeing the work you're doing, Lockie, mate. It's always amazing to see the growth of even past clients and to see how you're leading in that space with men. And I think it's so important today.
Appreciate that. So let's talk about obviously the how we can improve our relationship with ourself and our mind. And obviously, you were in the model at a different stage in your life, and having a good relationship with yourself may or may not have been part of that process. But there's definitely a lot of listeners out there who struggle with self-esteem, self-worth, and we aren't kind to ourselves in the way we treat ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally. So how can we go around improving that, or I guess even identify more around that for us?
I think for me, Lockie, when I really understood about the relationship with the self and how important it was when I, started my modeling career. And that was my 17 years ago. I'm telling you my age now, but 17 years ago. And I remember being asked to model several times and constantly knocking it back because I was pretty much shit scared of rejection. And I would avoid rejection at all costs because deep down I was a perfectionist. Now, if you're listening to this and you don't know what a perfectionist is someone that is constantly having to make sure things are all in alignment, or things they know they're going to succeed before they actually take the risk. They're afraid of failing because if they fail, that means that they're not enough, or it's going to trigger their I'm not worthy wound. So a lot of people that are perfectionists won't put themselves out there. And that was me, right? So I constantly kept doing that. And through the modeling, what it taught me was that rejection taught me to accept myself. Because the more I understood how to embrace myself, even when I was rejected at the castings or I didn't get the job, if I held on to what they said, I wouldn't be focused on the next job and presenting myself for the next casting, right? And to give you a bit of a background, modeling is literally 10, 20, 100 models going for one job. And you're going against so many different people that are so many different looks, different talents. And when I think about acceptance, what you've got to realize is that I realized from a young age, from the start of that job and that career, that if I keep comparing myself and looking at everybody else, that I'm going to miss the point, right? So I really went deep into how can I connect to this person? How can I make a genuine connection? How can they remember me out of 200 people? And that had to go deep within myself. I had to go in so that I can go out and perform, right? So I had to really have a good relationship with myself, because if I didn't, and I'm trying to fake it, and we hear this saying all the time, fake until you make it, which is absolute bullshit, because deep down, it's like you can pretend, but it's like you can't beat the energy of someone that actually feels themselves and that's connected and that feels confident, right? And I remember seeing this guy walk into a room And, you know, models are meant to be like confident, and they're like, you know, they're handsome, they're confident, or they're beautiful and they're courageous and all this kind of stuff. And we have this perception of them because of what they look like, but they're some of the most insecure people I've ever met. And when I saw this guy walk into this room, I was doing a casting in Hong Kong at the time. It was a Jean-Paul Gaultier casting. And I remember this guy walk in and he said hello to everybody in the room. Now, straight away in my head, I was like, well, he's different. How come he's literally said hello, made eye contact, shook everybody's hand? I was like, that's a confident man. And he walked and he did the catwalk. You know, we had to do a catwalk in front of everybody, in front of the judges and all that kind of shit to basically cast for the job. And he booked the job. And I also ended up booking the job, but that one job changed the way I see confidence and the relationship. Now, if you feel yourself and you're really connected to yourself and you embrace yourself, you've got no reason to be judging, or you don't have any reason to point or be arrogant or, you know, anything like that, because it's like, well, you're just a human being. I'm just a human being. I'm going to acknowledge you, you know, and we all want to be seen, heard, and understood. And ultimately, everybody wants confidence, bro. But we think that we're in competition. And the moment we think we're in competition, we're missing the point of our own gifts. So for years, even before I got into the modeling, I started doing self-development work, figuring out what it is that my story was. I'm not enough. And so many of us can understand that. Like, I'm sure you could as well. Like, I don't feel worthy, or I'm not enough, and constantly having to prove that story wrong over and over again. I had to go in and do the work. And that means I call it the yin and the yang, the dark and the light, right? We're both made up of light. We're both made up of darkness. One can't exist without the other. We've got negative, positive, high, low. They have to coexist. Hate, love. You won't know what happiness is until you experience sadness. You won't experience peace until you actually experience what anxiety feels like. So it's all necessary. And how we deepen our relationship with ourselves is we go deep into the dark side, the shadow side, the part of ourselves that we're not proud of, the part of ourselves that we hide and avoid, right? And as men, we do this. We're so good at this because the ego of like, just keep your shit together. You don't really talk about emotions. You don't talk about feelings. Be a big boy. You know, all of that shit is toxic because you're not honoring yourself. Now, the best way to describe it, Lockie, is imagine there's two little boys inside of you. All right. And the one little boy is the side you're proud of, the side that you tell all your friends about. Oh, yeah, I picked up this girl. Oh, yeah, she said yes to me. Oh, yeah, I went and played football on the weekend. I kicked this many goals, right? That's the side you're proud of. You know,
Instagram.
Yeah, you show everybody on Instagram your best self, right? But then on the other side of that is the side that got rejected, the side that you don't tell people about your insecurities, right? The side that you're ashamed of, the side that you don't really talk about, right? The fears. Maybe that other side, the dark side, has some fears, and you don't want to honor those fears. And when you don't honor those fears, what you're doing is you're basically saying to that little boy, I don't want to pay attention to you. And what happens to us as children when we get ignored from our parents?
Feel lonely. We feel unloved.
Exactly. And then what does that transfer into when I constantly get neglected from the people that I love?
I'm not worthy. I'm not enough.
Yeah. And we start acting out in certain ways and we start rebelling. So it's like, if I'm not going to get your attention this way, then I'm going to start doing some shit that's going to upset you. Either way, I'm going to get your attention. So what I'm going to do? I'm going to yell. I'm going to scream. I'm going to start smoking. I'm going to take drugs. I'm going to act out because I want some kind of attention. We all want to be seen, heard, and understood. But if we're not willing to see ourselves and acknowledge that inner part of us, then we're never going to establish a healthy relationship with ourselves.
I think that's such an powerful thing, to be seen, heard, and understood, and start with ourselves. And we've got a lot of dads that listen to this show, and there's people who may not be motivated to do it for ourselves. But if you've got children, even as you said, like when our parents may have neglected us, or we're passing that on to the next generation. So it's important for us to,
Patterns.
yeah, to acknowledge that within and do the work on ourselves, even if it's not for you, if it's for your children, like to just break that pattern, because it does
Mm,
go back into, low self-esteem, self-worth, not feeling loved and worthy. And, you talk about the insecurities and the fears. Like I thought I was nailing it. And I like the last 3 weeks, or depending on when this episode goes out, but I had like a 3-week period where I was struggling hard. And then I went and saw a therapist and she just went into the deep stuff. It was like,
yeah,
you're just full of fear. Like you've built your business, your whole life is run out of fear. And
yeah.
that was hard to hear, because especially running the Man That Can project, it's like, do I tell people about this, or do I just try and work on it behind the scenes? Like, what am I doing?
So what you're saying right now, that's a pure example of like, now I've built up this character and this identity,
Mm.
and there's no way I can share people that vulnerable stuff like that. And that's that fear of like, I've got to keep up this expectation of like, because I'm serving so many men. And this is what we do, is we don't acknowledge that part. What we've got to realize is that your vulnerability and your acceptance of that part is what's going to get you to the next level, which is what's going to help more men out there by acknowledging it.
Mm. And that's exactly it. But it it literally destroyed me for 3 weeks. I haven't felt that bad for such a long time. And I know there's a lot of people and men out there who are dealing with that in their own way, shape, and form. But whether it's seeking help or chatting to someone like yourself or just communicating, but at some point we have to pull our head out of the sand and do the work. As you said, the work is going in. It's like
Mm.
being guided towards the dark side, the things that you don't like about yourself, and it's uncomfortable. It's not easy. Are there
Oh
some
yeah.
common things that you see? And obviously, because you work with high performers, right? And a lot of people, a lot of men especially, we take on that role, or we adopt that role and responsibility. We want to be the high achiever. We want to be the protector. We want to be the provider, aka the high performer. Is there some common things that you see with high performers that um,
Yeah.
a lot of us
So
can be
many.
prepared for while we're striving towards that?
I mean, you think about the high performer or the high achiever. Why do we want to achieve high, right? When I think about why I coach these kind of guys or men or women that are high achievers, is because I was a high achiever. I was a perfectionist. And the reason why I was a perfectionist is because I was trying to get the love and the acceptance from my father. And this is the reason why I do what I do today, is because I didn't have a great relationship with my father. And he didn't have a great relationship with his father. So what did I do? I was like, well, how am I going to get his attention? How am I going to get his love? I'm just got to create bigger things. It's got to look better. It's got to be huge. I've got to move mountains, and then I'll get his love and acceptance. But this is the thing, we're all cheating ourselves, is that if we're constantly looking for permission from someone else, or we're constantly looking for someone for the approval, then we're always going to remain a prisoner. And so many of us, think about that. Whenever you're constantly looking for approval or looking to prove someone, you will remain a prisoner. You will never be free. And you will always look outside of yourself to get that validation. So most high achievers, high performers, what they'll do is they'll kill it. They'll kill it in business. It'll look amazing, but then they'll get to a stage in their life where they literally will be like, I'm disconnected from my purpose. And it's because they're not choosing the purpose from the most authentic place. They're choosing it from a place of their mind, which is what they think. If I achieve this, that will give me the love and the acceptance and the gratitude, that feeling. But it's not, because it was never in alignment with their values. They did it because I'm trying to prove my father, or I'm trying to get that woman, or I'm trying to get the ideal partner, or I want to be liked, or I want to be loved. And a lot of high achievers will do this to the point where they burn out. They don't know when to rest. They don't know. They think bigger is better. They think more money. And once I get more money, then it's going to be sweet, because then my friends are going to adore me even more. And then I'm going to get more girls, or I'm going to get the ideal partner. And they end up having, if they're married, pure example, if they're married, they'll be disconnected from their kids, or won't have a great relationship with their child, or they won't have intimacy with their partner. Or if they're single, their relationships will be transactional. They'll be killing it in their business, and they're doing so well, but they're actually lonely. So they just meet girls, go out with them, have a good time, but they're not really deep connected relationships because they haven't connected with themselves. Another thing is that they can be the responsible ones. So it's like, I'm going to take responsibility for everybody and take care of everybody except for myself. And I do it with money. So there's so many traits of high achievers that it's like, yo, you need to check in and go, what am I really doing this for? Why am I really going out there and busting my ass for? Because if you've got no one, if you haven't connected to yourself and you're not sharing with anyone, you're going to be really lonely.
It's fun. As you were speaking that, I felt like you were profiling a part of me then, because I know, and I was saying this only on a podcast episode today, actually the one that came out. But when I feel like I'm in Brisbane, I'm in the fast-paced city. The environment's different, and you see the nice cars going past. You see all these, people that you perceive as successful because of the way they dress and everything like that. But maybe the watches they have, and it makes me then go, well, I need to do more. I need to get the car. I need to, what I'm doing is not enough. Oh, Siri's going off on my watch. I might take him off. To constantly strive to be better. But then when I go back to, maybe Toowoomba or even to the coast, I feel like that stuff doesn't, I guess, ramp me up or affect me as much. I feel like I'm a lot more in tune with what I value. And I know you were touching on that before. It's like a lot of people really aren't aligned with their values. And I know, I did some stuff with you on it 5-6 years ago. And so I really live by that. But I also know my environment, if I'm not wary of it, it'll take over. And as much as, don't get me wrong, I love working hard and I love that whole part of life. It's draining and it's tiring, but you can feel disconnected. You get all these wins, but you just like still feel empty inside. So it's going back to those aligning with your values. Can you take us through the values? Like, obviously, what the hell are they? Because there's a lot of people who are probably hearing this for the first time, and how do we go about, I guess, establishing them, and why is it important?
So your values is basically your house. It's how you make decisions. It's how you build relationships. It's how you build careers. It's the energy. It's an internal energy source that never runs out when you're in alignment with your values, right? When the moment you feel drained or you feel tired or you're constantly hitting walls and you're trying to force it, which is the masculine, trying to force an outcome, is when you're not in alignment with your values, right? We think as human beings that in order for us to create these massive goals or this and that, it has to be hard or it's going to take huge amounts of work, which it is. But if you are in alignment with your values and you know your values, then you will create so many more outcomes in your life that fulfills you versus you ticking off a checklist, right? So what are values? Basically, I look at it like it's the internal compass, right? So it's like your internal compass is, and when you understand that, you will act from your values, right? So a pure example of mine, one of my values is wealth creation, focus, courage, health, fun play, and trust, right? So these are my values that I live by right now. And the way you can find this out is what I want you to do is I want you to think of the values that you think you need in order to become the best version of yourself, right? So a pure example, I chose focus because I have so many things going on right now, Lucky. Like I've got a podcast that's about to launch. I'm releasing a new course. I'm building up my team in my business. I'm starting a YouTube. Like there's so many focuses. So I know that I'm like, I need focus because if I'm focused, what does that mean to me first? I'm going to be more productive. I'm going to get results done. I'm not going to be distracted. So then I write down all the things that are taking away my focus, right? So I research that value. And what you want to do is you want to master the value. So a quick exercise for the guys that are listening right now, what they can do is they can write down 5 people that inspire them. Right. And what I want you to do is I want you to write down 5 traits or values for each of those 5 people that inspire them. So you will have a total of 25 values, right? When you write down the 25 values, so 5 values for each person, then you'll have 25, because it's five guys or five women or a mixture, what you're going to do is you're going to start to see a trend. So you might see, oh, this guy's ambitious or he has integrity. And then the next person has honesty. He shows up, he's humble. Like there's going to be a synchronicity in the values, right? And what you want to do is you want to choose 5 of your top values on that list that speak to you. And if you were to master those values, what would that do for your life? How would your life look different? How would you start living? What would you be creating? What excuses would you stop making? Right? And when you get the values right, what you want to do is you want to take the top 5 values. You want to ask yourself, what does the value mean to me? How can I action it on a daily basis or a weekly basis? But it has to be action. With no action, there's no result. If you want to counteract behavior, you want to choose a value that is going to counteract that behavior that you're not proud of or that's not getting you the results that you want to get in life. Right? So another thing, play and fun is a value of mine. People will be like, well, how is play and fun a value of yours? But I'm like, because it's so important that everything that I do, I get to have fun with it, right? I love what I do. But if I'm not having fun, then why am I doing it? So it has to be playful. I have to be able to go, how can I bring play into this? Even when I create videos now, I'm going, how can I bring play into this? How can I laugh at myself? Right? Otherwise, if I take the shit too seriously, I'm missing the damn point again. Right? So another thing, health. What does health do for me? If I am at optimal states of health, like right now, like I had a nutritionist, he created me a full eating plan. I have a chef that comes to my house 5 days a week, makes me the food based on my energy levels, because I know if I have more energy, then I'm going to be making better decisions and I can put that energy into things and create more and also be in a better mood. The healthier I am, the wealthier I am, right? Because at the end of the day, you can create it all and it can look good. But at the end of the day, if you're feeling burnt out and tired, you're not going to be able to experience it and be present with it because you've constantly just burned yourself out. And this is what so many high achievers do today. They go, I'll sacrifice myself for the achievement and the goal, and I'll get it and I'll smash it out. And I feel good for a moment, but I can't even feel it. I can't even experience it. And this is where the blockages come. This is where the sickness comes, right? Because you're not honoring parts of yourself. I've had clients that are like, yo, I can't get out of bed. I'm like, yeah, because you've burnt yourself out and you haven't listened to yourself. You haven't listened to your body. You haven't paid attention. Now you lucky, bro, for 3 weeks, your body was telling you something. So like, and you're like, oh, but I'm just going to keep going. And then even you doing the work, even the same as me, sometimes I'm like, yo, I just need to step back. Right. And what you realize is like, when I step back and I actually just sit, or I speak to somebody about this, or I express it, that is part of your healing. You acknowledging it is part of your healing. And so many of us don't do that. We don't want to acknowledge it because we think it's weakness. But that weakness, if you embrace it and you heal it, is going to be your power. Because there's no fear now. I don't have fear about going to it. And if I don't have fear about going to it, then it doesn't have power over me.
It's a big one to take in for that, because it's like, it's such a hard thing to do, is to acknowledge a lot of that stuff. And especially, you know, high achievers. It's something that I want to be. I think I'm striving towards, but obviously as, I guess, that stepping stone along the way, you feel like you've got more responsibility, you've got more people looking up to you, so you can't show the weakness. But as you mentioned before, it's like we all have those moments where we're like, oh shit, I haven't been listening to myself, I haven't been listening to my body, and now I'm struggling. And it's important to, I think, you know, whatever roles, I work with a few lawyers, and they, you know, it seems to be an industry where they struggle to talk about these sorts of things because they're like, I don't want to show weakness. Oh, you'll get eaten is the common thing I always hear. And you're like,
and I get it. And it is like, I've worked with lawyers as well. And I think it is about your environment, but you've also got to admit, you know, this is why having a coach or having a mentor or having someone else that you can speak to in a safe environment is so important, because So many people don't express, and when you don't express and you hold in stuff that needs to come out, what happens is it builds up in the body, and this is where the blockages become, right? Our emotions, thoughts, feelings, they're not regulated, and it's like a kettle, right? I always do this sound where I'm like, and it's like about to burst, right? And when you express, like the moment you express and you have a great conversation with someone that listens to you, or someone's able to break down what's been happening in your mind because you've complicated so much, because this is what we do, we complicate shit. Only then we come out and we go, I feel so much better. And then we do the same thing again. We're like, oh, and at the same thing, a lot of high achievers, and you are a high achiever, Lucky. Like I've seen the way you do like CrossFit and shit. Like it's like you go extreme, bro. And the thing is, it's about understanding that, but also giving the body grace, acknowledging the self for the small things, right? I never would acknowledge myself unless it was huge. And that was one of the biggest mistakes I could have made to myself. When I started to acknowledge myself for the small things, I was so much happier with myself. I was getting better results and improving faster because I wasn't waiting until I got the big thing. I was acknowledging myself for the small things, the simple things, because it's the small and the simple things that make up the big things.
So
So
could
there's
even,
not this high.
so even like, I guess, acknowledging the small things, could that be like, I'm proud of myself for reading my 5 pages today, or
Absolutely.
going to the gym, or doing those things that often are a stepping stone on the way to the bigger picture generally.
Yeah. So many of us, what we do is we compare based on what we're seeing on social media.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I haven't done as well as Tommy, or Tommy's like got up and he's at 5 o'clock in the morning and he's already read a book and done his meditation and killed 5 clients today. Like it's, the thing is, we've got to step out of the comparison and competing with people online and people that we see. We don't know what's happening. You have no idea what's happening behind the scenes, right? And the acknowledgement is what you can do. Like you said, you're doing that every day on a daily basis. I literally thank myself. I give myself thanks. I do my meditation. I think about what I'm creating. I think about how that feels. And I think about, in my meditation, I do this visualization where I literally meet the best version of myself, and I see him and I see how he walks and how he talks and how he greets me. Right. And when I'm meeting him, I'm like, wow, it's done. He's already on his way. And then I literally say, thank you. And it's like, it sounds weird because you're like, you say thank you, but it's like what you're doing, is that we have such an inner voice that will criticize. Naturally, we go to negative thoughts. Naturally, we're the first ones to criticize ourselves. Oh, that's not good enough, or that's not this and that. And that's just a pattern, right? And I'm really training myself to really acknowledge myself on a daily basis and go, what did I do well today? Instead of focusing on all the things we don't do, because that's what we can naturally do. What did you do well? What can you acknowledge? What are 3 things you can acknowledge yourself before you go to sleep about? And then in the morning when I wake up, it's like literally do my meditation, sit with myself. When I sit with myself, that's me telling my inner child, that dark side, that I'm here to see you. I'm here to listen to you. I'm here to be with you. Like so many people think meditation, oh, I don't know how to meditate. But if you can sit and breathe with yourself, even if you start with like 5 minutes, that's putting into your self-worth jar. That's putting into your confidence jar. That's putting into your trust jar, right? Now, so many people are spiritually broke.
100%.
And they're like, I've got the achievements, but I actually don't feel anything. That's the saddest thing I see.
It's yeah, I can, there's so many men, and I think a lot of the audience that we have are similar to where I was in my life, and you come with so much baggage and so much resentment for the actions that you've done, or the way you've behaved, obviously, and we don't ever learn to acknowledge that and learn, as you said, sort of sit there. Like the reason why I love meditation is exactly that. I get to just sit there and understand myself, whether it's thinking about who I am working towards becoming, things that maybe I want to improve upon. And, obviously I still have the fear of, I don't want to go back to where I was, but I try not to focus too much on that. That's sort of like the motivator of where I want to go. And as you said, rather than focusing on what you don't want, what's the action word or the action item that is the opposite to that, that can guide you to where you want to be. You were talking earlier, obviously you said, you know, the best values, and how would they allow you to be the person that you want to be, but also you were just touching on the best version of yourself. And so are you
Yeah.
very intentional with creating that version of yourself, or do you just leave it up to randomness?
No, I'm intentional, man. I'm specific because it's like I know if I master these values, I'm going to impact. Like my dream is to impact way more people, like millions over the world, right? And I know why I do what I do. I love seeing transformation. I love seeing people shift their mindset of like feeling like they can't do it, or they don't feel confident, or they don't feel worthy, and they go out and they create it and they impact more people as well. And it's the best feeling in the world to me. And for me, it's like if I am focused, courageous, like these are all the reason why courageous, Lockie, is because I was shit scared of rejection. I didn't like putting myself out there unless I knew I was going to win. I
Yeah.
was and I really playing at a high level, playing basketball growing up. You know, I went to the States. I played junior varsity, like traveled around. I thought I was going to be in the NBA. You know, and I practiced daily. Every day I was on the court outside my house shooting, practicing, dribbling, like drills. Like I was determined, and I didn't make it. And in the end, what I realized is that it taught me so much about my leadership. It taught me nothing was a waste of an experience. Just like the modeling wasn't a waste of an experience. The modeling taught me how to really put myself out there constantly, get rejected, and still feel okay about myself. One day I got rejected 12 or 13 times in Paris.
God.
Yeah. And that's when I knew I learned the lesson. I went to every agency. I already had agencies all over the world: New York, LA, Hong Kong, Singapore, Barcelona. I went to Paris, you know, I was booked there for a job, and I was like, I might as well just go meet some agencies. And I went, and my agency in New York was like, we couldn't get you any appointments. And I was like, oh, bullshit. I don't believe you. So I just went
Yep.
myself, right? I went myself, and every time they were like, no, sorry, no, sorry. And it was about the 10th agency, I think. And it was like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I've been traveling all over Paris by myself, like looking up these streets, trying to find the next thing. And the guy was like, no, I don't think so. He goes, but you're not white. And I was like, no. And he goes, but you are not black either. And I was like, well, yeah, I'm mixed. And he's like, oh, yeah, it's just not going to work. And I was like, I
What?
laughed, and I laughed, and that's what that's what it is. You know, it's nothing personal. And this is what modeling taught me, is that it's nothing about me. It's not about my personality. They're purely looking at me like I'm a product. And this is what I had to understand with modeling, is that every time I get rejected, they're not rejecting me as a person. They're rejecting what I look like. And that was what taught me that I'm not who I look like, because one day I'm going to get old. One day my body's not going to be muscly. One day I'm going to be fat. One day I'm going to be wrinkly. And I had to learn from a young age that I am not my body.
That is such a important message, especially obviously with the Instagram culture at the moment. A lot of the influencers and people, you know, I'm guilty of it as well. You want to put your best photo up there, and so many of us are attached to that. And we are going to get old. Stuff's going to head south. It has to. So we need to learn to
It's
detach from that.
natural.
When you obviously, you know, one of the topics of recent is being like toxic masculinity, and I guess tying it into what you said earlier, where you focus on the opposite of that. So healthy masculinity, honoring yourself, and as an individual, and I'll direct this to the men, but for the females as well, you'll take a lot out of this. There are a lot of blokes that I personally know that don't honor themselves, and it's
Yeah.
you sort of touched on it earlier, where it's might be weird. Your old man might say, "Toughen up, don't cry, get on with it." And these are all things that, um, you know, honoring yourself, to me, when I even think of it, it's like that's not manly. That's who takes
Yeah.
time to
We
do that.
think so. What do you want to talk about? You want to talk about toxic or healthy first?
Let's go healthy.
All right. So healthy is it's confidence, but it's not confidence like I'm in your face. There's a difference between confident and is cocky, right?
Yeah.
So confident is you can see a guy walk into a room or a man walk into a room and he has presence and he can acknowledge you and he can smile and say hello, even if he doesn't know you, right? He's stable. He knows where he's going. He's certain. He's assertive. He's not aggressive, right? You know, as so many people think of assertiveness as aggressiveness, and it's like assertiveness is I can be direct with you and I know my values and I know that you have your values, but I will not sacrifice my values for yours, right? The natural or healthy masculine is disciplined. He knows his boundaries. He has clarity. He knows his needs. And I think when we think about this, masculine energy is out there. We naturally want to lead. We want to solve problems, but we also have to understand we also have the feminine part of us, right? Healthy masculine is acknowledging that we have a feminine side, which is like allowing, which is chaos, which is expression, which is creativity. It's not controlled. And so many men won't acknowledge that side or be like, no, that's weakness or there's that. And the moment we have a judgment about something, right? The moment we say that's weak, what we're doing is we're shaming a part of us. So we're not honoring it. We're not allowing it to come out, right? Healthy masculine is honoring all of our emotions, not just some of them. Like I said before, it's the dark and the light. If I'm constantly going, no, 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 toughen up, don't cry, don't be like this, don't be like that, what I'm doing is I'm shaming myself. And shame is a very low vibration, right? It's one of the lowest. Fear, guilt, shame, hurt, sadness. It's very low vibrating. And how do you think a person can express or get what they want or create what they want when they're coming from a place of shame and guilt?
Be near impossible. Like, unless you lie, manipulate, and fake it till you make it.
Yeah, but it's a lie. It's not real. Like the whole boasting, like, look what I did, da, 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 da. Yeah, cool. You can acknowledge yourself, but there's a difference between acknowledging and going, I'm doing this because I need you to tell me how good I am. There's a difference.
Massive difference. And the confidence versus cocky. I think there's also, and maybe this is me justifying it to myself, but for a long period of time, I didn't want to show up as assertive. I didn't want to be too confident because I didn't want people to think I was arrogant. I didn't want people to think I was cocky. And I think that's what, for a long period of time, I was so reserved and I was very quiet, purely out of fear of how, once again, I guess it goes back to, as you were saying earlier, the comparison and perception. But it also, I feel like I missed out on so many opportunities because of that. And there's definitely so many other people out there who are missing out on opportunities because they haven't developed the confidence, sorry, maybe because of similar belief systems.
So many. Like I literally, like I used to play cricket as a kid and I was really good. Like I was 8 years old playing an under 12 side. I was a bowler, really confident with my bowling. I remember being at in the nets and I was bowling and my dad was watching, and you know how you line up and you go and you bowl. And I remember bowling out this guy 3 times in a row and I was like, hat trick, too good. And I remember going, like just really just I was 8 years old, right? But I was cocky. And I remember my dad saying to me, don't be cocky. And I heard that. And what I made that mean was don't ever acknowledge yourself out loud. And from that moment on, I let my game speak for me and I didn't acknowledge myself. And I didn't know that I made that agreement with myself, because what we do, we make agreements with ourselves, until about 20 years later. No, about 14 years later, when I was doing my self-development, like I was doing my coaching course, and I realized that I don't acknowledge myself because I thought that would be cocky. Right. And how that can ruin you putting yourself out there and be seen. And the thing that you said, Lockie, was like, I didn't want to put myself out there because actually you put being accepted or approved of higher than you accepting yourself. So it's like, I'm going to make it more important that people are going to approve of me and be like, he's not cocky, he's a nice guy, and because of the fact of not being accepted or being seen as someone that is cocky.
I think I still do that to a degree, to be honest. Now that we're
Yeah,
thinking about
we
it.
all do, bro. We all do. Even I do still.
So you said agreements with ourselves. How
Yeah.
how do we identify what those agreements are? Because obviously we've all made them at some point in our life, and some of us are thriving because of them, and other people aren't.
Yeah, so I always look at it like this. We're made up of like 10% consciousness. If you look at this bottle, if you're listening, I'm holding a bottle. The top part of it is 10%. The bottom part of it is 90%. The 90% is your subconscious. That is running your life. And so many of us make a hidden agreements and stories up based on how we were treated as children. And it might be a story like, I'm not enough, or I'm not smart enough, or your dad said that you have to get A grades before you can get attention and love. So you're like, you became an A grade student, you became academic, and you became very structured because that's how you receive love. Right. And how you find out about your agreements or your stories is if you figure out, where are you hiding, avoiding, and pretending not to know things. Right. So you think about this. Where are you hiding? Where are you not putting yourself out there? Where are you making excuses or sabotaging yourself? Because there you're going to start to see exactly the stories, I call them PCCs, the persistent complaints, concerns, or critiques that you're telling yourself every single day. Right. And you may wake up in the mirror, wake up in the morning, and you wake up and you look in the mirror and you go, I'm tired. I can't be bothered. I've got to do this thing. I've got to put this video out there. A pure example, I'm saying my example, right? I've got to put this video out there, but I don't know how to work this system, and I've got to learn this new computer system, and I'm not good with computers, or I'm not good with technology. Right now, my story is that I'm not technologically, I can't even say the damn word,
Yeah.
technologically savvy, and it's going to take me forever. So just me telling myself that, right? It's going to. So what do? I avoid until like last minute, because I have a team waiting on me to shoot this damn video.
Yes.
They're like, where's the video? And I'm like, it's coming. Right. And and it's the avoidance, or it's a sabotage. And I know that this is the thing, Lucky, bro. Like, for years, even before like coaching, like I was a model, but when I became a coach and I had to put videos out there, I would shit myself constantly because I hated the way I spoke. I hated the way when I got on camera, I wasn't confident in it. And again, you try and fake it till you make it, but on a camera, you can't hide shit. It just sees you as you are. And I had to really understand that it's like, for me to be confident in anything, I had to really embrace the imperfections. I had to really be okay with making mistakes and learning from that and going, how can I grow from this experience? Right? Make a mistake. Cool. What can I learn from that? I'm learning more from my mistakes than I am from my winnings. Right? And I've got this saying above my bed that says, I never lose, I either win or I learn. And that was to counteract me trying to make sure it's perfect before I can start.
It's awesome. So good. Learn more from our mistakes and the winnings. Such a powerful thing. And this sort of ties back into everything that you've touched on, of understanding your core values, taking time to just be with yourself, and stepping into the dark side, but also acknowledging the light side, right? From being able to learn from your mistakes and or your winnings. Like, that's how you get feedback to improve. And a lot of us are so much more brilliant than we realize. We've a lot of your life journeys, as you mentioned, the mistakes and the rejection and the comparison have made you the man you are today. And a lot of men out there have just as much value to give in their own way, shape, and form, but they just can't get over that first hurdle of looking within and doing that inner work. But obviously, a few of those tips that you've given about learning to embrace the dark side, acknowledge it, and reflect upon it, and then obviously start identifying the man, or the person, I'll say the man, I always end up saying men, but the man that you want to become and that ideal self, and then putting some things in place to, what skills do I need to develop? Who do I need to hang around in order to
Yeah.
best support that?
And a coach, get a coach or a mentor, right? The best and most successful, like you see athletes out there, they all have coaches. Why does Michael Jordan have a coach? Why does Tiger Woods have a coach? He's the best in the world. Why do they need a coach? Because they're there to point out their blind spots. They're there to still keep, evolving with them and getting them to step out and grow, right? Like Michael Jordan, he had a coach, he had Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson, what's interesting in The Last Dance, I'm not sure if you've seen that documentary, but
Yeah.
in the last dance, Phil Jackson was learning about Buddhism and learning chemistry of the mind and how to orchestrate a team. Like, how do you manage a bunch of superstars? You're going to have to understand yourself. You're going to have to understand the ego. He knew that Dennis Rodman is crazy and is like an amazing, like one of the most amazing rebounders in the game, but he's nuts. He knew that he had to let Dennis Rodman go and party for a day, and he knew that he would come back because he allowed him to do what he needed to do. Right?
Yeah.
So, like, the thing is, he had a coach that understood him. And when Michael Jordan felt understood, he played even better. He felt empowered. He felt seen. He felt in charge, right? The moment he had other coaches, or like the biggest thing I didn't even know about The Last Dance is that so many issues he had actually with the owner of Chicago and the general manager. And what's crazy is that even though he was the best in the game, he was still getting controlled in some sort of way. Like there was still people above him that were, pointing him out and like going, you have to do this, or we're not going to do this. And, we all go through our struggles, but what gets us through that is having a coach, having a mentor, having someone we can speak to that we can confide in, because it is the most important thing when you can actually feel heard by somebody, when somebody's on your team and rooting for you and going, hey, let's go together. Let's smash this out together. I've got your back.
100%. And even just on that, I was going to do a video after this about like self-motivated change versus obviously, I just call it supportive change, which would be getting yourself a coach. And there's a lot of people who go, I'm going to change myself. I'll invest the time in listening to podcasts, or, even if people sign up for online courses that are self-paced and then they just drop off, because most people, and the reason why I want to share this is because most people do struggle to get motivated and hold themselves to a new standard. Like, it's all well and good because more often than not, it's more affordable to get those online courses. I offer them as well, but it's like, I see people drop off, and it's really, you get what you pay for. And if you're truly committed to, I guess, being that best version of yourself and whatever that looks like, eventually you're going to have to invest in yourself. And unfortunately, where the base that most people are coming from, we've come through a schooling system where we've had our hands held. We've been dropped off to school and we're not allowed to leave till 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock. So there's nothing else to do. Whereas here we've got so much opportunity. We can catch an Uber, we can turn on Netflix, that it distracts us like crazy. So for those out there listening, if you're at that point where you want change, and, as Emile was saying, get yourself a bloody coach, but also be honest with yourself with where you're at on that journey. If you are just going because of a price point, or, maybe you're unaware and you think you can just create change for yourself and your previous results don't match up with that, it might be worthwhile going, righto, it's time to get serious. It's time to put my money where my mouth is, or even my time, or whatever it is, because, otherwise you're just going to keep repeating that cycle, which ties it back into what you were saying earlier, Emile. It's not good for our self-esteem or self-worth if we keep supporting the bad habits that we have about ourselves. And it might be, I never finish what I start. I can't, my biggest one was, I can't change who I am. I just accepted that I was that guy I was 8 years ago. But I've wrong.
And the thing,
you go.
No, go like. The thing is with getting a coach versus like just doing it yourself or reading a book is that your mind is so good at negotiating. In fact, the moment you get into negotiation, it's going to try and find the easiest path, right? It's that's what it does. It just finds instant gratification. Let me get hit. Let me get the dopamine hit. Let me just have it easier. I'll do this. I'll do this course without a coach, because then I can do it at my own pace, which is you trying to control your shit again.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, it's all good. Yeah, I signed up for this course, and you get all pumped. And then a week goes past and you're like, well, how's that course going? How's that discipline going? How's the results? If you want to get different results, you're going to have to do something different. You're going to have to act differently. You're going to have to want it badly. And this is why when you get a good coach that you resonate with, that actually is in the position that you want to be in, that's when you know, right? Like, see where that coach is at. Who have they helped that's similar? What have they done? Really, you know, in your heart, if that person resonates with you. And that, you know, and even for the guys listening, there's a reason why you guys are listening to Lockie's podcast. Is because of the fact that he's showing up in that space. There's something you can relate to him with, right? And I think it's so important, right, these days, that we really do honor that part of ourselves, that we can receive, that it's okay to ask for help, and that it's not weakness. Because so many of us men have this hard time struggling to ask for help or speak in a deeper manner, where we're like, yo, this has really been troubling me, you know, and that is actually, that's strength, when you really honor that part of yourself, right? Not the other part. It's easy to hide and avoid it. Easy.
That's awesome. I got one last question for you, and then we'll respect your time and let you head off. But what's your definition of being a man? It's something that I love to get everyone's perspective of, because it is such a, you know, obviously we've got the generalized version of what a lot of us have grown up to try and mold, but we clearly know it's not working because there's so many unhappy and unhealthy men out there. So I'd love to hear what your take is on it.
My definition of being a man is when he fully owns his shit, when he can fully express his emotions and feel himself and feels validated within himself, and when he can actually honor his deepest fears and insecurities and express that to the world. Like, it comes down for me to self-expression, because being a man it's so easily defined as he's masculine because he shows up strong and is this and is that. But it's like, we have really lost our way of what is strong and what is the definition of a leader, and we've kind of misconstrued our ideas. And I think when a man can respect himself and has that deep, genuine love for himself, he shows up 10 times more powerful, not only for his woman and his partner, but for his children and for his friends, right? He can respectfully hear somebody disrespecting and then still call someone out without being egotistical, but being a leader, you know. And I think that's what my definition of being a man is about.
It's powerful, man. Very, very powerful. So finally, where can people find you? I'll, for those who have been listening along, I've written down so many notes. So even the questions around the finding your values and all that, I'll put all that in the show notes so you can do it. And I'll attach all of Emile's links there as well. So you can just one click away.
You can find me on my website, which is www.emilesteenveld.com, or you can go to my Instagram, which is @Emile Steenveld.
Epic. And soon you'll have the podcast coming, yeah?
Yeah, I've got my podcast coming out called the Hustle and Flow podcast, which is going to be literally about the doing, which is the hustle and the masculine, versus the being, which is the flow and the feminine, which is what my brand's about. It's honoring the dark and the light, but also like taking it to the next level.
Well, I'm excited to listen to it. I'm going to get so much value from it. I've taken away so many notes from this conversation. My mind's blown. So, Matt, I really appreciate your time. I know you've got a lot on your plate, but thank you for sharing everything that you have. And gents, wherever you're listening around the world, or even, you know, we do have ladies that listen as well. Reach out to Emile. He's got so much to offer. And as mentioned, you know, you can find him on the website, Instagram, and the podcast coming soon.
Thanks, brother. Thanks for having me.